listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
Welcome to another edition of the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. I'm your host, Femi Abebefe. As always, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Our producer, Elliot Bowman, with us on the ones and twos. Michael, week one of the preseason is over, but boy, we got the takes flying, man. We got guys out there, the rookies. I want to start with the rookie quarterbacks and get your interpretations of those guys, because a lot of people came away impressed with pretty much all of the guys outside of Drake May who played only sparingly on Thursday.
Well, I think this whole section of our pod today is just everybody calm down, right? Like, listen, everybody calm down. You know, we're overreacting again, and I think it's probably problematic. Look, it's preseason. And I think for me, if you don't look good, I mean, Sam Darnold looked outstanding.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did that change my thinking? I don't know. I mean, you know, it's preseason. The Raiders were playing a vanilla coverage, a vanilla front, all those things. J.J. McCarthy looked good. I mean, Caleb looked good. All those things are, you know, it's when you don't look good. Here's the reality. Zach Wilson looked good.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson looked good. So when Bo Nix looks good and Zach Wilson looks good, is it Sean Payton making him look good? Is it Gus Bradley's horrendous defense playing cover three? You know, Gus doesn't have another trick up his sleeve. Like, that's the way he plays, right?
Yep.
So I think, to me, it's just like you got to kind of calm down. I think more importantly, look at Minnesota's execution was good. The Raiders' execution was good. You know, do you think they have a quarterback because Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew played good? I don't. I think, to me, it can be very, very misleading. I really do. And look, the other thing you have to be really careful of, Seattle played their starters defensively, right? Mm-hmm. How much did Tennessee played their starters and offensively and defensively? Like, who's going against who, right? Like, how's the competition? And, there's really, the players are just trying to get through the game. There's not a lot of the speed of the game isn't going, but that doesn't diminish what Jaden Daniels did or Bo Nix did. I mean, they got a chance to play, or J.J. McCarthy, they got a chance to play, or Michael Penix. They played, and they played well. Why you wouldn't play more? Why would Drake May only throw 3 passes? I have no idea. Like, I don't understand that player development at all. But for the most part, you got them, now you can build off of it, right?
Oh, 100%. And for the guys, we'll run down some of the stats. I mean, it's not the biggest deal here. I mean, I'm not even going to say the scores of these games because the scores are almost irrelevant. Caleb Williams, though, 4 of 7, 95 passing yards in 2 series, also had 13 rushing yards. Jaden Daniels, he only had 1 series, but it was a really nice series. Had the deep ball to De'Ami Brown, had the rushing touchdown inside the red zone against the New York Jets. Michael Penix, Friday night, 9 of 16 with 104. Then McCarthy, 11 of 17, 188, 2 touchdowns, I should say, an interception, and 18 rushing yards. Then it was Bo Nix, 15 of 21, 125, and a passing touchdown in 5 series. So, like you said, they're going against vanilla defenses. So if they don't look good, it's problematic. But I guess with that in mind, though, was there a performance that really stood above the rest for you, or were they all just kind of like, okay, check one, they all passed the first test, let's see what they do the following week and going forward?
I thought Bo Nix was good, and I think Bo Nix is going to be good. I think Sean's determined to make Bo Nix look good. I think there's value. What we don't talk about is the player. We don't talk about the coach coaching the player. And Sean Payton is one of the best quarterback coaches in the National Football League. He's one of the best play designers. Mm-hmm. He's going to make it so. And I thought watching Denver play against Indy, I thought when the play broke down, Bo Nix was really good. I thought he was really good. And I thought he moved around. He threw the ball accurately on the run. I thought he was impressive. I thought J.J. McCarthy was impressive. I thought they had great poise. I thought the Minnesota offense rallied around them, and you could see the team kind of come together around them, and they were cheering them on and all those things. So I think, to me, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for what's the execution like within the framework of the game. And you take like Trey Lance. I did not think Trey Lance looked good. I thought he looked slow with the football, decision-making. I mean, he's got 41 attempts in the game. They tried to make him look good. 41 attempts, he throws for $188, right?
Yeah,
and so, he held the ball. And then Cooper Rush comes in. He's 2 for 3. for 44 yards. I mean, and one of the passes was a deep pass through a beautiful thing. But for me, Trey Lance was a typically what we see in Trey Lance, hesitant, not rhythmatic in terms of his throwing, whereas when Michael Penix was, or J.J. McCarthy was, I think there's a feel for it, and there was a hesitation in Lance. And so for me, if I were a Cowboy, and if I was in the Cowboy front office, I mean, we gave this guy 41. He got a little bit better, but there's something missing here that I can't put my finger on, and it doesn't translate where his arm and his feet are tied together. I thought Bo Nix were. I thought McCarthy was. I thought Michael Penix was. Like, you could see Michael Penix is going to be, look, we're going to take some shots down the field, throw it. I think he would be the perfect guy for that Rams style of offense that he's kind of in. And so, whereas like Stetson Bennett, like too many mistakes, he can't, doesn't protect the football. Okay, we move on. Bailey Zappi, I've seen enough, move on.
Yeah, I thought that was the most disappointing part of the preseason, was only getting one series of Drake May. And I get that it's raining outside, and people are saying the offensive line is bad,
matter?
But it's like
why did that matter?
I don't know. Apparently it does. Apparently it does
Nick
now.
Sirianni said he didn't want to play his guys on Monday because it was raining.
It's raining.
I didn't know rain was prohibitive in terms of playing preseason.
Well,
games.
It'll never rain in the regular season. We know that for sure. Yeah, it'll never rain in the regular season. So why would you want to get ready to play in the rain? But I mean, it's just like you said. We've seen Bailey Zappi. We know what he is on tape. There's no mystery there. Play your guy Drake May, who by all indications is not going to play early in the regular season. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett. So if he's not getting reps in the regular season and he came out as sort of a raw prospect who needs reps, needs time on task, like, now is the time to get him that time on. These other guys are playing 4, 5, 6 series, and he has 3 passing attempts in one series. Like, it seems like a missed opportunity for New England.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree. I think, to me, I think you have to see, this is what separates Sean Payton from the New England Patriots, right? Gerard Mayo, he's a head coach, but he doesn't really. Sean is the offensive coordinator. He's the head coach. He's got a specific plan for Bo Nix. Like, there's Alex Van Pelt's got to have the plan. Everybody else has got to have the plan in New England for what the quarterback wants to do, right? There's a disconnect here. Like, if you have a young quarterback, you got to sit there and have a systematic plan in place for how we're going to develop him on and off the field, and how we're going to get the team to rally around him, and how we're going to get the team to be cohesive around him. I think that's what you see with Bo Nix. You can see there's a confidence with him. And look, he goes out there and now he has success. And so everybody's like, oh, I can't wait to see Bo Nix next week. Okay, good. And look, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Zach Wilson, but we finally seen Zach Wilson professionally coached, and he looked half decent.
Yeah.
I mean, Zach Wilson, we can make fun of the Jets all we want, but Zach Wilson was the second pick overall for a reason. He had great talent. He had a strong arm. He had athleticism. He had rhythm to his game. He got the second pick because of that. Now, I think they mismanaged him when they bring him in. They don't have a plan for him. I think that's the biggest thing for a lot of these rookies is, what's the plan? What's the onboarding? I think one of the biggest things everybody wants to ask about culture, right? How do you develop a culture? Well, if you don't have onboarding in terms of any company that you work for, you can't have a culture. Because if you don't have an onboarding process, how do you teach people what your culture is? You put a sign up on the wall, nobody's going to buy that. So I think what Sean's demonstrating out in Denver is, here's the way we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to play the game. Here's what we're going to do. Meanwhile, in New England, they're just evaluating. They're going to say, okay, you're on your own. We're going to evaluate you. We need to do this better, that better. No, where's the onboarding? See, that's something that, you got to have that part of your team. And that's what you want to look for in preseason. I think Seattle, you can see Seattle. Mm-hmm. You can see Mike McDonald's got an onboarding process to it. You can see the way his defense played. I know he played, against the Chargers, and they played their starters and all that, but you can feel it. You can see that what we talked about all off season, that their defense is going to rally to become a good defense. Like, they're going to fix the problems from the past. And they're not going to be 32nd in the league in run defense next year. And if they do that, the 9 wins are going to get a lot easier to have, as opposed to what Pete was able to accomplish. Winning 9 games and not playing run defense was a testament to Pete's ability to kind of keep his team together.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he did best there. Somehow, some way, he was grinding out some of those victories. But Byron Murphy, the guy that fell into the laps for the Seattle Seahawks, defensive tackle out of Texas, he looked really good. I mean, that guy flashes when you watch him play. Tackle for loss. He's pushing the pocket back. I mean, if only he did these things in college. If only he did these things. That?
It's just I was going through the Bears, and look, I love the Bears, but when I was
Hard
doing
Knocks?
well, I haven't watched that yet. I will, but to me, is like, how are they really gonna? Are they going to be good enough I think Caleb Williams really looked like moved, great rhythm. I mean, that to me. Anybody who wants to have the conversation about Justin Fields and Caleb Williams, just watch the first preseason game, right? Like, Caleb Williams is a bona fide player. He is legitimate. Justin Fields, we're still trying to talk ourselves into. Well, he fumbled 2 snaps. He looked better. Justin's going to be a guy that it's not going to come. It's a little bit like Lance. It just doesn't happen quick enough. And you've got to be honest about it. Whereas, if you're in the Bear fans, you got to say, okay, we finally, this isn't Mitchell Trubisky. This isn't Justin Fields. We got a quarterback. Now, the problem you got, if you're a Bear fan, is, are we good enough in the offensive and defensive line to be what we have to be? That's the question.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like that pass that he had rolling out to his right to Cole Kmet. I mean, it's like, you look at that and it's like, well, that's the guy that we saw win the Heisman Trophy at USC. Like, that's exactly why Bears fans are optimistic and why the win total is as high as it is over at DraftKings, and why there's so much of this Bears hype that we see, because Caleb Williams is capable of doing those types of things, and I think you'll see more of it in the regular season. I wanted to give a couple other shout outs to some rookies that we saw play well. We talked about Byron Murphy. Jermaine Burton, the wide receiver for the Bengals, he had some really nice plays, making plays down the field. I mean, I got second half of the preseason game, so it's like, how much can you translate that going forward? But he looked good. Also, I mean, we've talked about Lance. How about Tyler Guyton, the left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys?
I thought he looked good.
He looked really good. I'm like, they did it again. They found another one.
Again, calm down. But he looked good. He looked like he belonged out there, right? He looked like he belonged out there. And I think, like Burton, I think this is the perfect example. The Bengals are the 4th in the National Football League in spending on offense. They're 8th on defense. But the reason they have cap room is because they're willing to say goodbye to Boyd. They're going to say goodbye to Higgins, and here comes Burton. See, this is what we're calling about. This is how you manage a cap through player development. There's certain players you can't bring back. But to me, this is why. And Burton, look, he was good at Alabama. Now, off the field, we got to be careful.
Yeah, it looks like they found another productive receiver. We'll get to some of the quarterback battles on the other side. This is the GM Shuffle. We're rolling along here on the GM Shuffle, reacting to what we saw this past weekend, our first full weekend of football, even though it's preseason football, and we're going to go ahead and take this with a massive grain of salt, but there's some football for us to evaluate. We're going to calm down. We're going to be calm. We're going to be calm. Although it was fun to get it back in our lives, though. I must admit, it was fun to have it back in our lives. I want to talk about these. It was
great. It wasn't fun. It was awesome. It was great to see it. I actually was impressed with some of the execution. Some of the teams and, the little bit of time that they've had. It's going to take some time to get going, but I think it's, look, it's going to be more of reinforce this idea that we don't need 3 preseason games, And I think you can see teams that have a plan for how they want to get ready in the preseason and teams that don't. I mean, look, Josh Allen played in the preseason. Joe Burrow played in the preseason. Yeah. Drake May really didn't play in the preseason. How that makes sense, I don't know. But I think to me, certain teams, to me, all quarterbacks, like Tom Brady wanted to play in the preseason. He wanted to get, like Mahomes, he wanted to get hit. He wanted to throw. He wanted to feel it. I think it's important. You're not going to get hurt. The game's moving way too slow, and the defenses are really just playing so vanilla that it's not that complicated.
Yeah, the fear of getting hurt stuff, that's the one. I get it. It's a bummer when guys get hurt. And, we saw Hollywood Brown for the Chiefs. He got hurt with the shoulder injury. They're saying that his status for week 1 is uncertain. We talked a little bit about it yesterday on our Lombardi line show on VSiN, that you think that he's probably not going to play in that game, which is a loss for Kansas City, where the wide receiver room's a little bit, I guess, in flux with the potential Rashee Rice suspension, whether it's this year or next year. Who knows what's going to happen after what happened this offseason. But I think that, there's going to be some risks that you take on, but ultimately you have to get your guys ready to play in the regular season, and you do that by playing in training camp and playing in these games. all throughout August. But let's talk about these quarterback competitions, because in Minneapolis, that Raiders-Vikings game, really interesting. Maybe a QB competition brewing between the Vikings, J.J. McCarthy, Sam Darnold. We saw Darnold only get one series. McCarthy looked pretty good. But how about the Raiders one? Minshew and O'Connell led touchdown drives. What did you make of the silver and black in their QB competition? Who's ahead? O'Connell got the start, but both guys looked pretty good.
Well, I think this. I think that when you play Minnesota and they're not blitzing, it's a different game, right? I mean, it was a very vanilla game, and both those quarterbacks should play well. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't play well against a very vanilla front, very vanilla coverage. So I kind of don't know what to make from it. I know Antonio Pierce said after the second preseason game he wants to make some kind of decision. I don't know how he's going to. It's going to have to be based on what they do. My sense of it is I've always felt they signed Gardner Minshew to be the starter. So maybe that's what it is. Gardner Minshew's odds are now minus like 150, I believe, aren't they, Femi? I mean, he's the prohibitive favorite for a reason because of his experience. Look, I think at the end of the day, if you're a Raiders, you're going to play both of them. You're going to play both quarterbacks at some point because Minshew's not a 17-game starter, and neither is Aiden O'Connell. You have two backups really playing. For Minnesota, I think that they should be really encouraged by what they saw at quarterback from J.J. McCarthy. And I think we see Kevin O'Connell as a really good quarterback coach. I think their offensive line, just on the surface, they paid Darrisaw, O'Neal, their tackle situation is good. So, the execution of Sam Darnold, I thought was really good. He got the ball out of his hand quickly. He was decisive. He knew what he wanted. But again, vanilla coverage. So it's easier. Hey, middle of the field's closed, throw it here. Middle of the field's open, throw it there. When the game speeds up, can he do that? But I think Minnesota looks like a team that, they practiced. They look like a team that had good practices. San Francisco took the ball opening drive with the backup, with all the backups in the game, and went right down the field. I mean, they did a nice job. They threw it. I think it was Brandon Allen made some throws, But you can see, I think what you can see is the execution and the attention to detail, and that's what you're looking for in the preseason. I'm not saying it's perfect because it's never going to be perfect, but I think that's the most important thing. But I think there's a reason why Minshew's the favorite bet on the betting market.
Yeah, minus 130 over at DraftKings. O'Connell is at even money. So the betting market thinks it's going to be Minshew. But it was interesting because I was watching the halftime show in the Cowboys and the Rams game, whatever, on NFL Network. And they had a friend of the pod, Brian Baldinger, on there over at NFL Network. And then Steve Smith Sr., the former wide receiver. And Steve Smith was making the point that, because they were asking him, hey, what do you do in Denver? If it's a tiebreaker between Stidham and Nix, what would you kind of favor? And he was saying that they should start Stidham because he's a veteran and all this stuff. And he doesn't think that Nick should be the starter unless he's clearly better. But I want to kind of ask you about that with the Raiders situation. Let's say it's tied, and at least close enough in our heads, between Minshew and O'Connell at the end of the second regular or probably preseason game next Saturday. Who should they favor if it's really close between the two? Do you go with the younger guy, or do you go with the veteran guy who you paid and brought in to at least give you a little bit of security?
I think you go with the guy that's the best leader, the team that's going to rally around him the most. I think that, that's one of the things I think Gardner Minshew can do. Aiden O'Connell's kind of a quiet kid, but I think you go with the guy who can lead the team. You go with the guy that gets in the huddle that the team buys into, right? That when we go down into Los Angeles and we open up against the Chargers and it's in the fourth quarter and we got to find a way to win the game, that we believe in this quarterback. And I think that's going to be only through the judgment. Is it Minshew? I think that's what they keep asking themselves. Who separates themselves? I think you saw that. That's one of the things that we grade so much of the production in the preseason. But I think when you watch Bo Nix or you watch McCarthy or you watch Penix, you watch these guys in the huddle, their mannerisms in the huddle, their behavior in the huddle, how they react in the huddle, how the team reacts to them, how they celebrate. Does the lineman come help the quarterback? I mean, Bo Nix' second throw of the game, he tried to throw an inside seam route, and he got the shit knocked out of him. And of course, the lineman came all over and got him. And you could see there was camaraderie. I mean, that's what you're looking for because look, this is the position that leads the team.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good answer. It's almost like leadership and that stuff is sort of the tiebreaker. It's not age or contract or where you, and I'm sure contract will always factor in because it's like, hey, if we're paying somebody X amount of dollars, we want to go see them play. But it is who galvanized the locker room. And one thing I'll say, having covered Gardner Minshew his season at Washington State, like that's somebody that guys gravitate towards him. And you've seen that in previous stops here in the National Football League. Like he just has one of those personalities that guys want to be around. Maybe that kind of gives him the edge in this quarterback battle between him and O'Connell. And Antonio Pierce has come out and said, I want to hear Aiden O'Connell's bark. Like he's like, I want him to be a little bit more vocal. I want him to kind of take more ownership of the huddle. Maybe O'Connell can do that between now and Saturday, but usually it's one of those things that like you're not going to change your stripes. If you're just a quiet guy, you're probably just going to stay a quiet guy. The other quarterback competition, I guess not really a competition, but based on reports we got at a training camp and the absence of one player being Russell Wilson, people thought that this could become a quarterback competition. That's in Pittsburgh with Justin Fields and what we saw Friday night in their preseason game. Fields against the Houston Texans, 5 of 6, 67 yards passing, 3 rushing yards, 2 fumbles, 2 sacks in 3 series. What did you make of the Fields performance? And has this whole potential could Fields start week 1 thing just been blown out of proportion based on what you saw in the game against Houston Friday night?
Well, I don't think it's blown out of proportion because I think that there's some things that Fields can do. But here's what I've said all along about the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback position. If they don't protect the football, they're not going to start. Russell Wilson was 7th in the league last year in interceptions thrown. So he protected the ball. Whatever you want to say about him at Denver, he protected the football. I think, to me, that's what it's going to come down to. Fields had 2 bad exchanges. You know, whose fault was it? His fault, the center? I don't know. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to blame anybody. But to me, I still think Fields is slow to react. He's slow to process. His feet and his arm are never really tied together. I think Wilson hasn't practiced, and I think that has hurt, and he's going to need to get some reps. But my sense of it is that it's Wilson's job because I don't think they're going to trust Fields to not turn the ball over. Your Fields is going to give you some, but he's going to take some too. That's the biggest issue with Fields.
Yeah, it's kind of a big play for both teams, the offense and defense, which you don't want that from your quarterback. Mike Tomlin was asked about Justin Fields' performance after the game Friday night. Here's what he had to say on his quarterback.
You know, I thought he did some nice things, but obviously he was a component of the CQ exchange. And from my perspective, that's dual responsibility on the center and the quarterback. It negated a lot of good things going on in those first couple of drives. I think one definitively got stopped by it, went to 2nd and 14. You get behind the chains, particularly at the early stages, before you gain real cohesion and have enough of a menu to get you out of them circumstances. You're a dead group. And so the CQ exchanges were an issue.
Yeah, that's Mike Tomlin on kind of the center quarterback fumble exchange. I love hearing Mike Tomlin talk. He's the best.
I can listen to him all day.
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, at the end of the day, Mike Tomlin, you're going to be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're going to protect the football. Because you won 10 games last year by protecting the football. You were not flashy. They're the Iowa of the NFL, right? I mean, that's who the Pittsburgh Steelers are. They're the Iowa of the NFL. Iowa's the 3rd winningest team in the Big Ten. Nobody gives a shit about them, right? Nobody gives Kirk Ferentz any credit. They give him no love, right? He's never won Coach of the Year. Nobody thinks they're good. They lose. They get into the playoffs. They lose. Everybody gives them crap. Meanwhile, his program's always in the top. Pittsburgh makes the playoff, win 10 games, lose to New England, lose to Arizona, still win 10 games, and nobody wants to give the guy credit as a coach. I mean, but he has a philosophy, he has a belief. He understands what he wants. His team's tough. I mean, everything that we talked about in terms of how to win in the NFL, Mike Tomlin understands that. And if Justin Fields turns it over, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. Justin Fields did do something over the weekend. He won the Steelers home run derby. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they have a home run derby every single year, at training camp or something. And Justin Fields, with his baseball background, I should say, he went ahead and took that thing home. I guess Russell Wilson didn't compete because he also has a baseball background as well. But it was Fields that took that home for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, I think this is going to be Russ who starts week 1 against Atlanta. Like, I think that's just where we're headed. Unless Fields is awesome when they play Saturday night, we'll see if Russell Wilson can play in Saturday's game when they host the Buffalo Bills. Like, he just needs to get back on the field and start practicing.
Yeah,
he's dealing with the
calf. They need to evaluate him.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to evaluate him.
Yeah, in that offense. Because, they have no equity to Russell Wilson. Like, he's a guy that they signed him.
There's no equity to anybody, really.
I
mean, they have no equity. I mean, they're still in search of. I mean, look, they're a team devoid of quarterback. Somebody's got to take a step. And they may end up with with a draft pick to draft a quarterback next year. But right now, they're still in search. They're throwing stuff. They're like Seattle before they got Russell Wilson. They're in search. They hope it's Fields. They hope it's Wilson. They're kind of – but, look, the team is going to be centered around we're going to run the football. We're going to play action pass. We're going to play great defense. We're going to kick field goals. We're not going to lose the game. We're not going in the game and give you the game. You're going to have to beat us. And if that's the way, and we'll find a way to win games. And we don't really give a shit about the schedule. We don't give a shit about what we're doing. This is who we are. I mean, look, that's how he's won all these games. He's a good coach. It's more than just one thing, which is what we always focus on all the time.
Yeah, I still can't believe they won 10 games last year with losing to Arizona and New England at home. That could have been a 12-win team somehow, some way, and maybe it fought for a division title in the NFC North. Maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers will trade for Brandon Aiyuk, because I know that's what their fans have been clamoring for all throughout the offseason. The latest on the Niners all-pro receiver coming up next, and also Jerry just had to open his mouth and ruin my weekend, didn't he? We'll discuss it here on the GM Shuffle. Welcome back. This is the GM Shuffle presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Femi Abebefe, Michael Lombardi here, breaking down what we saw over the past weekend in the NFL preseason action. And the Steelers, their fans, have been clamoring for their team to trade for Brandon Aiyuk. They really would like Aiyuk to be on their team and add to this team that potentially could make a run at another postseason berth here. But we saw another development in this Aiyuk story, which I think we're on chapter about 12 at this point with all the reports that we've been getting over the last 2 weeks or so. But our buddy Jordan Schultz over at Bleacher Report reported that Aiyuk recently had a sit-down meeting with Kyle Shanahan and others in the organization where, quote, some open and candid thoughts were expressed. The two sides have since restarted negotiations on a long-term deal, and there is some optimism that Aiyuk could remain in San Francisco. My. I mean, this time last week, everyone thought that Pittsburgh was almost a done deal, and now here we are. It sounds like more often than not, it's going to be him playing with the 49ers on some sort of restructured contract.
Well, I think what's happened clearly is that, when you go out there and you shop yourself, we know the New England Patriots were going to offer him a substantial contract that would have put him in the top 5 highest paid players in the league, which would have gotten him over that 30 million threshold, right? So Tyreek Hill's at 30 million, Amon St. Brown's at 30 million, AJ Brown's at 32, Justin Jefferson's at 35 on the new money, right? So it would have got him over that. And so that's appealing to him. And they could have satisfied the 49ers trade demands in the sense that they would have gotten players back that could help. The problem is he don't want to play there because he don't want to go to a losing team. He doesn't. Who's going to throw him the football? It's going to go to he's going to go to Siberia to play. I mean, as Al Davis used to say to me all the time, we're going to send you to fucking Elba, and you're going to be like Napoleon and live in some island off the coast of Italy, and it looks beautiful, but you're getting paid, but it ain't very good. So, all right, so can't go there. Don't want to go to Cleveland. Doesn't want to go there. They could have I don't know why Cleveland. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on Cleveland's cap situation.
I was going to say, apparently there is no salary cap for that matter.
Well, it's eventually they're going to pay the pauper. I mean, with the Sean, I mean, eventually that's all going to come due. But, they're either making, to me, these windows that these people talk about in the media, is your window open or closed? Windows have more to do with the cap than they do with Buffalo's window is not closing, because Buffalo's taken all their cap hits this year, and they have Josh Allen. The window's never going to close when you have Josh Allen. But where Cleveland's window could close is because of the contract for Watson and all these contracts. They're going to get out there. They can't redo people's deals because they've already redone them enough. So that becomes the real issue. And then they're going to have to cut down on how many players they actually have on the roster. But that's down the road. But to me, he didn't want to go there, right? Didn't want to go there. And so, he wants to go to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has nothing really to trade to give San Francisco to satisfy them. And would Pittsburgh then would they pay him above the 30 million? So, I mean, do you really want to leave San Francisco's offering you 27 and Pittsburgh's offering you 29. I mean, is it really worth it to leave to go to a team where you're not sure who's going to be your quarterback? I think that's kind of and this has all been generated by Aiyuk's kind of thought of himself and what he wants in the marketplace. But if you're not willing, if you're willing to say, I want the money, then you got to go to New England.
Yep.
But but you can't have it both ways. We're not Burger King here. You know, we can't have it both ways, right? So either you want the money or you want to win or you want to settle. And I think that's where they are in the settlement element of it. Look, San Francisco has never wanted to get rid of the guy. I've said that for a while, but at some point, San Francisco's thrown their hands up in the air and said, okay, enough is enough. You know, we can't really do it. You know, and they've got other fish to fry. I mean, look, they've got this whole Trent Williams thing. I mean, Trent Williams is going to be, what people don't realize, when you miss a preseason game, that costs you a game check of your fine when you hold out. So you've lost a game check. So Trent Williams is, when he missed that game on Saturday, it lost $1.1 million. So that's gone, and they can't pay it back to him. Plus all these other fines he's accumulated. Hassan Riddick, which might be the dumbest holdout since Le'Veon Bell, missing the whole season, he's down almost $2.5 million. And if he misses this game on Sunday, on whenever they play the next one, he's going to be down like $4 million. Where are they going?
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I don't even know if they know where Hassan Reddick is, to be honest. Like, he just he hasn't showed up to anything since they traded for him. That situation just seems like a disaster. Apparently they wanted to go Howie Roseman's probably laughing every night that he goes to sleep.
To be laughing. I mean, he's like he basically said, "Here, Joe, take my problem and give me your best player. I'll take Bryce off. You take my guy."
Yeah. That just seems idiotic what's happening there. But for the Niners, and we talked about this as well, when the video came out of Brandon Aiyuk talking to Jaden Daniels, who the two of them played together when they were at Arizona State back when Aiyuk was in college. And he was talking about how, the Niners, they don't want me. It's like the Niners clearly want you. They just don't want you at $35 million a year or something like that. Like, everybody has to fit in, because like you mentioned earlier this month, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, is that you have to model these things out if you're building a team. You can't just say, we're going to pay this person this, we're going to pay this person all this money and this and all that stuff. It's like, otherwise you're going to get yourself into a little bit of a trap and a predicament, especially when you have Brock Purdy. Maybe next year you end up paying him a big contract that's probably going to be north of $60 million a year. Like, you have to prepare for all of this stuff, and they've always wanted Aiyuk, and I think that's why they said, hey, come on back to us. You found out what the market was out there for teams that you would like to go to, whether it's Pittsburgh or being here. They're not going to that $30 million number, so let's go ahead and find something that works for both sides. So, yeah, I think the longer this thing continues to draw out, because, what was it, about 10 days ago we saw all the reports about, something is imminent and the Niners have agreed to a deal with Pittsburgh, but then Aiyuk can't agree with something with them. I think the longer this plays out, the more likely it is that we just find out that Brandon Aiyuk signs a deal maybe at the end of the preseason and is a 49er for the foreseeable future. Like, I just think that's where we're headed, barring some sort of crazy thing.
The rubber's got to meet the road, right? Yeah. At some point, they either got to get it. I mean, Kyle's got to put a deadline on it, and the rubber's got to meet the road on Trent Williams too. Mm-hmm. I mean, at some point, that's got to come into play, and then the rubber's got to meet the road on Hassan Riddick. I mean, that's the reality, I mean, either you got to continue to hold out and lose all this money. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Trent Williams has racked up $650,000 in fines, but then you mentioned that the additional game check on top of that.
He lost the game. He lost $1 million. So he's going close to $2 million. He's going to be on $2 million. I mean, Riddick's going to be close to. If Riddick misses this game, he's over $3 million.
That's incredible. Like, these guys, I'm sure they've made a lot of money in their careers, Williams and Reddick and all these guys, but man, that's still just to willingly give up that kind of money. Maybe you just do the hold in, like what Aiyuk has been doing, just holding in and don't get the fines, and then you can at least keep your money.
Well, but now that you've held out, it's hard to come back in. I mean, I don't know what they're doing with CeeDee Lamb. They say they're not going to find CeeDee Lamb. But again, Jerry's saying that, we miss you, CeeDee, but he's in no rush. Like, that's the hardest thing to understand is Dallas. Like, I don't know where they're going. I don't understand what they're doing. But look, they wanted to evaluate Trey Lance, and I think they did a really good job of giving the kid 40-some passes in a preseason game. Now they have all this tape on him. They've got practice tape. They can make a decision on, okay, is this guy worthy to do for it? I think that's a smart play, unlike what New England did not playing Drake May. But to me, I don't know what their plan is here for what they're going to do in the sense of CeeDee Lamb. They need him. I mean, and if they're not going to fine him, when are they going to get him done?
Yeah, well, let's play the soundbite because I do want to take it back to what we saw last week, because then Jerry then followed up with those comments yesterday on the pregame show leading up to the preseason game. But here's what he told reporters last week when he was asked if there's urgency to get a contract done with CeeDee Lamb.
Are you saying there's a sense of urgency as you begin the preseason to get CD done?
No.
No? Why you say that?
I'm just, I went to high school or I went to college. I don't know why I said it, but I'm just saying I don't know. I don't have a sense of urgency about getting it done.
Because it's a long-standing tradition.
Pick any reason you want. I was at Nobu 2 days ago. Give that as a reason.
Pick any reason that you want as to why there's no urgency. Then yesterday in the pregame show before the Rams-Cowboys game, he said, quote, "I got in a little bit of trouble the other day for saying that there wasn't any urgency in signing CeeDee Lamb. I understand completely the angst that's happening about whether you're missed or not. Well, CeeDee, you're missed," is what Jerry Jones has since said. Still no contract as we're going now into week 2 of the preseason, but he went ahead and clarified the no urgency comments that he made earlier last week.
Well, he's the owner. I mean, when you're the owner, you don't have any urgency, right? You're not reporting to anybody, right? You don't have to answer to anybody. It's like, you don't have Al Davis asking you what the hell's going on. Mm-hmm. You're the owner, and the owner's son works for you. So he doesn't feel it. Look, I think the thing is you can't act desperate in these contract negotiations. The agents sense it. And if you act desperate, that we got to get this done, there's pressure to get it done, they're going to get more money out of you. We saw that on Hard Knocks with the Giants. I mean, the guy, Kevin Abrams walks in the room and says, Illuminor, we good, it's going to cost us $1 million more. Okay, go ahead and pay them. There's just $1 million out the window. I mean, if I walked in and told Al Davis it's going to cost $1 million more for Illuminor, he'd have shot my head off. Hell, we're sitting in there. We got Rodney Harrison in a room. We have Rodney Harrison in a room. He has a pen in his hand. He has a contract laid out. We're going to sign him to that contract. Scott Pioli's on the phone with him on the cell phone and trying to talk him out of the room. And Steve Feldman, his agent, is talking to Pioli and talking that. And all we had to do was modify the contract a little bit, just a little bit. And he would have signed with the Raiders, but we didn't. He walked out the door. Should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, so when when the owner's controlling it, that's the thing.
Yeah, and Jerry Jones, he just has to answer to himself with what he's going to do here. I usually don't do this, but First Take is on right now in the studio, and they're saying that Asante Samuel, of course, a great friend of the pod, predicts that Bill Belichick will be the Dallas Cowboys head coach in 2025. Obviously, a lot of urgency for Mike McCarthy because he's heading into a lame duck season, but with the expectations being what they are for the Cowboys, everyone expecting them to sort of take a step back. We've had the conversations about this in the past. Do you think that that's something that's feasible? Could those two work together and make something happen in the near future?
I can't answer that. I don't know what Jerry would tell Bill in terms of how the structure of the organization would run. I think it's interesting. Mike McCarthy's won 36 games in 3 years, and he's already getting replaced. Nick Sirianni's won 34 in 3 years, and he's getting on the hot seat. Yeah. Meanwhile, Robert Saleh is just wonderful over there, right? Matt Eberflus has won 10 games. He's not on any hot seat. It's kind of interesting how it all goes. I mean, poor Mike McCarthy's won 36 games. Yeah. He's won, he's made Dak Prescott the best quarterback that he's ever been in his entire life. And yet he can't get a contract extension. I don't know what's going on there, but to me on the surface, looking on the outside, looking in, I say something's going wrong, but I'm not in the building, so they must obviously been happy with something to not extend it.
Yeah, no, they're all in on prove it year for everybody. That's what they're all in on. CeeDee Lamb, it's a prove it year. Mike McCarthy, it's a prove it year. Dak Prescott, it's a prove it year. Let's see what happens in 2024. Did want to update people, though, in the National Football League. Big news for the Miami Dolphins. They get their star pass rusher, Jalen Phillips, back. He's now been taken off the PUP list, so he is eligible to practice coming off of the torn Achilles that he suffered on Black Friday against the New York Jets. And this is a position group that the Dolphins really, really need. They lost, what's his name? Bradley Chubb. They lost him to a knee injury late last season. We'll see if he can cut off of the PUP list. Christian Wilkins is now here in Las Vegas. So to get Jalen Phillips back at this time, I think is massive for the Dolphins if he can get right for the regular season.
Yeah, I agree. But I think the Dolphins defense is going to be interesting to see the whole thing into play, right? To see how it's going to go. Now, Calais Campbell was a good late addition for them. We'll see. He was the best defensive front seven player for the Falcons last year, had 19 quarterback hits. So I think, to me, that it's going to be interesting how this whole Miami defense comes together.
Yeah, the Dolphins, I mean, they said they didn't want to have Vic Fangio there anymore, Anthony Weaver. The vibes, I guess, are nice. They like him. We'll see how it works out there. I still like that offense. I think the offense will still be explosive. If they can just figure out the defense, maybe they could be cooking with some gas in that AFC East. That should be a fun division to track throughout all the season. All right, that does it for this edition of the GM Shuffle. Thursday, we will continue Blue Chips, Red Chips with the pass catchers, wide receivers, and tight ends. We'll get Michael's Blue Chip, Red Chips in both of those position groups. As always, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you to our producer, Elliot Bowman, with us on the ones and twos. The YouTube audience, keep liking, keep commenting on those videos. We really do appreciate the interactions that you guys give us. And Michael, enjoy the rest of the Pacific Northwest. Safe travels back to Jersey, and I will talk to you on Thursday.
Thank you, Femi.